Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Chaos Head NoAH. So, you're probably wondering, what are we doing back here again? And, after last episode, I was told that I should go back to this segment and say no to all the options. So, I'm going to check that out, and I'll see what happens. After which, I will go back to where I was in the game before. And then I'll talk more about last episode. Classes, who cares about those? The competition swimsuits are definitely better than the regular school ones. No. School swimsuit is a symbol of youth, something to remind of those days that bring such bittersweet tears to our eyes. Oh, and socks too, and they've got to be over the knee. Oh, huh. Well, good thing I did this then, because I want to give as many tips as possible. Over the knee socks. A type of sock that extends beyond the knee, not to be confused with knee socks, which, when used in Japanese, refers specifically to socks that reach up to but not past the knee. Over the knee socks serve as an intermediate option that reach higher than knee socks, but not quite as high as thigh highs, making the term an important distinction for both otaku and leg fetishists alike. Such, such deep complexities to the topic, as you can see. Oh, okay. So I was told to say yes to this one. Oh, and if she's wearing over the knee socks, her sexy level rises over 400%. Slow down, man. LMAO. You really like swimsuits, huh? As any man should, logically speaking. BT dub, it's not really about how much skin is shown. No pawn, short for no panties, used to refer to female characters who are not wearing underwear. Many artists enjoy illustrating a character in such a way that their underwear is not visible, invoking the delusion that the character is not wearing panties. So where'd grill? Girl. Did they say that, or did I just miss that? Okay. Like, you know how Grill having her panties completely exposed is epic, but that the implication that she's going no pan is so much hotter? It's like that. Okay, sure, but I'd be happy either way, really. What? What sort of knave can't acknowledge the superiority of implications? I mean, NGL, I just like him naked. Does that make me a knave? You stupid dumb fuck. You don't get moe at all. And I guess that's where it goes back to normal. So I'll just go back to where I was. Okay, and we're back. So, yes, I was informed that last video didn't have audio in the right ear, and I am so sorry about that. I looked into it and I realized that for some reason the audio was only being input for the left audio channel, which I was able to fix pretty quickly by setting it to mono. I'm not sure if that's gonna create new issues, and I apologize in advance if that does. I am baby, as you can tell. And, so, yeah. Oh, yeah. I should mention, I am deaf in one ear, so typically I have my computer audio on mono, so I'm not sure if that will affect anything, like your experience with this game's audio itself, but please just bear with me here, I guess. But yeah, last time Shogun sent our boy Takumi here some interesting images. I went back and looked through my recording, and the first image was kind of hard to discern what was in it, but the second image, yeah, kind of gruesome. But, yeah, as much as I'd love to see more of that twisted image collection, I don't think Takumi here really wants to, so, yeah, let's go ahead and go to school, I guess. I stifled a yawn and started trudging off towards school, a trip that was about 10 minutes from my base on foot. I apologize if I read that before. All-round dining. Mimira. Member. Sorry, I have a habit of looking at backgrounds and stuff like this. As soon as I started walking, my mood sank even lower. My body grew heavy, and I found it strangely hard to breathe, causing me to break into an uncomfortable sweat. This was what always happened on school days. I hope you mean school days as in your school days and not school days the anime, because school days the anime. Going to school was pure suffering. Why did I have to go through this? Grumbling to myself with my eyes fixed on the pavement, I kept walking. I turned to enter Shoto Park. The school was just past it. Over by the lake, an elderly couple was taking their morning stroll. Nearby, a businessman sat on a bench, reading the sports section of the newspaper. For a park on the outskirts of a bustling city like Shibuya, it was surprisingly calm. Definitely a great place to relax. I took a seat on another bench nearby. Before heading into school in the morning, I always came here to eat breakfast. I gazed out toward the peaceful pond, the water surrounded by trees with off-color leaves, their hues slowly changing as autumn rolled in. As per usual, today's menu was just a cream bun that I'd picked up from the convenience store on the way here. It'd be enough to tide me over until later tonight. Gives me memories of stopping by vending machines in my college and grabbing honey buns when I forgot to have breakfast. Probably not good for me, but I had to make do. It's not like there were any more appealing options. Let's be real, it's a vending machine. I always skipped lunch. Nobody wanted to eat lunch with an otaku freak like me, and there was no way in hell I'd eat alone when surrounded by people eating and chatting together. After washing down my breakfast with some cola, I began staring up at the sky absent-mindedly. No matter the season, the sky above Shibuya was always pretty bleak. My parents only lived a few train stations away, but there was still a clear difference between here and there. I don't know, man, you've got better sky than me, at least. Houston is terrible. Don't get me wrong, I didn't especially mind the bleak sky, but I also couldn't really explain why. I glanced at my watch to check the time. I needed to get going or I'd be late. I had to avoid that outcome at all costs. I only came to school 2 to 3 times a week, so I had to keep a low profile. To make it through school, I had to blend in, to become invisible like the air. The ideal school day was one where nothing happened, one where I didn't have to deal with any of my teachers or Dokyun classmates. That was the ultimate goal I shot for, and it would continue to be until the day I'd finally graduate. This was Suime Private Academy, the school I went to. Apparently, it had only been built around 10 years ago, so it didn't exactly have a rich history or anything like that. Since it still looked brand new, it made a pretty good setting for high school TV shows. On top of that, the school uniforms had apparently been designed by some famous designer. A ton of shallow-ass girls enrolled just so that they could wear it. Is this the character designer, giving themselves a pat on the back? Little Obama, awarding Obama moment. And while they called it a prep school, most students here didn't score much higher than the national average. Even more ironic, though, was that the school slogan was, "Here you'll be free," and yet the school rules were actually really strict. Then again, they never actually bothered enforcing those rules. So I guess the slogan wasn't really wrong in the end. I mean, I barely ever showed up and I passed my classes just fine. If you could get away with that, you could probably get away with anything. As I closed in on the school, I could hear the other students more and more clearly. I wasn't good at dealing with crowds, so I just kept my head low as I slipped through the gate. Nobody talked to me. Nobody talked to me. I repeated those words in my head like a mantra. My younger sister also attended this school, though she still lived with my parents. What kind of parents do you have where you live in a storage container on your dad's rooftop and they have no problem? I will be curious if we meet his younger sister. Running into her, and any perfectly fine day could turn into a nightmare. Luckily, I hadn't run into her this time. I made it to class safe and sound. I rushed over to my seat, being extra careful not to make eye contact with anyone. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that the famous protagonist seat? Because he is by the window, but I thought it was the third. Eh. I could feel a nearby group of girls shoot a glance at me, but thankfully, they went right back to chatting afterwards. They all thought I was a freak. I was sure of it. Well, from my point of view, you 3D sluts are the real freaks here. If you think I'm a freak, then don't look at me. Just pretend like I'm not here. Don't acknowledge me at all. If you all just do that, then I won't bother you either, and I can go about my day in peace. That's why it always confuses me when I see Dokyuns calling people freaks. I just don't get it. If you think they're such a freak, then why even bother talking to them? Just stay in your corner and they'll stay in theirs. Regardless, I was just sitting there, looking down at my desk when Anime Girl.
Yo, Taku.
Never mind, Anime Boy. Somebody suddenly clapped me on the back. Startled, I turned to look behind me.
お前、 今日って学校来る日だっけ？
That is one heck of a voice and appearance dissonance.
ミスミ君。
Misumi-kun. You're probably evil. It was Misumi Daisuke, one of my classmates. He shot me a friendly smile from behind my desk. The guy was pretty handsome, so all the girls were into him, but he was also into them and dated them. A lot of them, usually multiple at a time. If you ask me, he was balls deep into Dokyun territory. If it were up to me, I'd steer clear of him, but...
相変わらず暗い顔してんな。ゲームのやりすぎで寝不足か？
Yep.
別に。
He was the only person in the class who was comfortable talking to me. Though we had absolutely nothing in common, so I had no idea why he bothered. I'd been suspicious about it ever since the school year began. Story of my life, bud. I could have had a lot of great friendships if I hadn't been so wary of people. If I were a girl, I could maybe understand, but since I was a guy, it made no sense to me. Maybe that's the twist. I would if I could. Just the act of talking to another 3D human being was painful. Anxiety made it hard for me to speak naturally. My lack of experience made it hard for me to articulate things. And I was always afraid of being teased for saying something weird. That was why I always shrunk back. You have no idea how much pain I'm going through, so please don't talk like you know me. Also, I'm not a goddamn shut-in. Real shut-ins stay in their room 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I'm not like that. Who says we aren't? Wait, was he just dating girls as a cover? Has he been into guys all along? I tried to back away from him, nearly falling out of my chair in the process, but I quickly grabbed onto my desk to catch myself.
ミスミ君はホモなの？なわけねえだろ。お前、俺の女好きを忘れたのか？だよね。ビビった。ちなみに。
I met this really, really hot pilot yesterday. Misumi-kun took a look round, then lowered his voice and grinned from ear to ear.
昨日このクラスの女子で3人目を落とした。誰だか聞きたいか？いいよ、別に。
I don't think we have a choice in this matter.
だよ、もっと興味示せよ。田中だぜ、田中。田中って誰？お前、もうすぐ10月だって。未だに同じクラスのやつの顔を覚えてねえのか？ま、3次元に興味ないんじゃ、それも当然か。
Visibly frustrated, he shrugged his shoulders and let out a sigh. Well, interestingly enough, he never insulted my taste in girls, which was, to put it simply, that they had to be from the second dimension. But he'd never called me a freak for that. He just didn't bother with things that didn't interest him. That was what made me think he may not have been all that bad. That was also probably the reason why I didn't mind talking to him.
これでうちのクラスの可愛い女はほぼ攻略完了だ。そろそろ隣のクラスに守備範囲広げようかって思ってんだよ。
Okay, maybe he was pretty bad. If a girl overheard some of the shit he'd said, she'd be horrified.
リーグミによ、めったに学校来ねえけど、すごくいい女がいるらしいんだよ。
I'm gonna give her the Class D treatment.
なんか、そういうの、燃えねえか。あ、お前の場合は燃えるんじゃなくて、燃えだっけか
？Degenerate. Are you talking about 2D? That's not. Oh!
ま、お前の興味ねえ話はそろそろやめるか。じゃあよ、ニュージェネの話知ってるだろ？
Yes, very much so. I hadn't expected to hear those words come out of his mouth. And here I'd thought he was only capable of thinking about girls. I couldn't even picture him watching the news or reading the newspaper.
集団ダイブの事件さ。あれも噂によると殺人らしいぜ。
I mean, I doubt there would be if there was a fetus in a man's gut.
マジだって書いてあったんだよ、スポ島に。
What, so his sauce was Sports Tokyo? That kind of erased any and all credibility. Whoops. Source: the origin of a person's information, be it a document, news article, historical materials, etc. Due to the large amount of false information present on online forums, it is important for a poster to provide the source if they want to be trusted, often referred to on the internet as sauce. For example, where's the sauce? Where's the lamb sauce? Where is the source of that? Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source? My source is that I made it the fuck up. Still, I'd already known about that rumor. Not that I cared.
で、聞いて驚け。その殺人鬼が女で、しかもかなり美人だって目撃証言があんだよ。
Of course she is.
女。
Watching Misumi-kun get so excited, it finally hit me. Why did he suddenly care enough to read Sports Tokyo? Same reason he cared about anything else. Something to do with girls. What a twist. I guess Misumi-kun would even go after serial killers as long as they were cute. I mean, if it were me, I'd take a cute 2D serial killer, but Misumi-kun stared longingly at the blue sky outside the window. And for some reason, his face suddenly lit up as if he'd reached enlightenment itself.
どんなやつなんだろうな、犯人って。本当に美人なのかな。会ってみて。
Yeah, this dude definitely thought exclusively of the wrong head.
俺だけは殺されねえ自信があんだよな。だってほら、俺ってかっこいいだろ。いくら連続殺人鬼でも、俺みたいないい男に会ったら、コロッと惚れちゃうぜ。
I don't know, it's always the best friend that gets killed in bad endings. And that's why she wouldn't kill you? This guy was so delusional that he gave me a run for my money. The fact that he was able to say all that without even a hint of irony was honestly pretty gross.
僕は興味ないから。でもよ、興味ないっつったって犯人は絶対この辺うろうろしてんだぞ。どっかですれ違ってたりするかもしんねえし。
It might be you. It might be me. It might even be one of those two girls in the background. There are 3 girls in the background, Misumi. 3. Yeah, well, for all I know, you could be the murderer. Don't jinx it, Takumi. Don't jinx it. Okay, probably not. But it was entirely possible that the killer could be one of the students at this very school. And it probably is, knowing how these things go. If that turned out to be true, maybe I'd use my PTSD as an excuse to come in less often without hurting my attendance. Ah, ye old tradition of using tragedies to excuse your own shortcomings. PTSD, short for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, from the DSM-4, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 4th edition, published by the American Psychiatric Association in 1994. A mental condition caused by the severe psychological shock of an accident, disaster, crime, or other intense stressor. It induces several stress-related symptoms, including emotional instability, insomnia, confusion, and vivid flashbacks. These symptoms are often triggered in response to stimulus that is similar to the original trauma. A patient must experience these symptoms for over a month in order to be diagnosed with PTSD.
なあ、今日俺と一緒に殺人現場見に行かね。ここから歩いて行けんだってよ。まだ血とか残ってるらしいぞ。
I mean, if it's that many bodies we're talking about, I wouldn't be surprised. I had absolutely zero interest in doing that. I just wanted to get through school in peace, go home, greet SEIRA-TAN, and get back to being worshipped like a god in Basilord.
もう小橋と長谷川は見に行ったって言ってたしよ。
本当に興味ないんだ。
I felt bad about turning Misumi-kun down, since he seemed so excited about it, but I really did not want to go. Looks like this is a city skyline. Even though I was trying my hardest to refuse, he just wasn't listening.
そしたら犯人とばったり会っちゃったりしてな。犯人は犯行現場に戻ってくるってよく言うだろ。
I mean, I haven't, so I wouldn't know for sure.
で、次はタクがターゲットにされるんだ。死をもって罪を償うみたいな。罪状はそうだな。引きこもってたからってことで。
僕は引きこもりじゃ。
That was weird. Taking some offense at Misumi-kun's choice of words, I almost snapped back at him. But I quickly decided against it when I considered the possibility that he might get upset at me. So I just bit my lip and turned away, and when I did, I noticed there was something written on the blackboard. At first, I didn't even really care enough to read what was written there. My mind only registered the fact that something was written there, and not what it was. But the longer I gazed at it, the more I realized something was wrong. Before I knew it, I was out of my chair.
ちょっとどいて。
おい、どうしたんだよ。
Whose eyes are those eyes? I pushed Misumi-kun aside and rushed over to the blackboard. The instant I realized what it said, I felt my heart stop. Whose eyes are those eyes? Those were the words I said to myself whenever I felt God's gaze. I'd never said them out loud before. I hadn't told anyone about them either. Not even Misumi-kun. It didn't matter how often I used it. There was no way anyone in this class could know about that phrase. So, who? Why? How? I quickly turned around and scanned the room. The only person paying any attention to me was Misumi-kun. The rest were talking to their friends, reading manga, despite manga being against the rules, or sleeping on their desks. Then, who? Who had written it? And when? I'm telling you, man. It's that girl second from the right. Look at her. She's looking away. Looking away. Trying to pretend like she had nothing to do with it. Had it been there the whole time? Since before I'd even entered the classroom? I couldn't remember. It wasn't like I ever paid any attention to the blackboard anyways.
なあ、どうしたんだ?
Misumi-kun walked up to me, grabbed my shoulder, and gave me a good shake.
聞いてる? おーい、タク.
It didn't matter who'd written it. It had to be a coincidence. It must have just been a common phrase or something. It was just a stupid, pointless scribble. Yeah, that had to be it. I tried to convince myself of that, but it was still freaking me out. I still had no clue who'd written it. I'd have to ask everyone in the class to figure that out, and I didn't have anywhere near that kind of courage. Immediately after I thought about it, that homeroom began and my teacher came in the room. His eyes immediately zeroed in on the words written on the board, and with a quick, "Come on, who wrote this?" he grabbed the eraser and wiped them all away. For some reason, I was still a little creeped out, but I tried to carry on like always. If I let myself get any more scared, I'd probably start thinking that someone was deliberately targeting me. Oh, there it is. Shibuya 107. Or, I suppose, Ichiro Nana? Yeah, I think that's it. But that was ridiculous. It was just a coincidence. In the end, I had to keep telling myself that until school was over. And when it finally was, I headed toward my usual internet cafe. Programmers wanted. Free training. Now only 500,000 yen to apply. Become a manager today. Shady Core. They are very on the nose with these. For an indoor person like me, that cafe was the only hangout spot I enjoyed. Being at the center of Shibuya and all, there were plenty of 3D Dokyun women and office drones occupying it, but since the rooms were all private, that wasn't an issue. As for the room I was in, it was the one I always reserved. Room 37, located way in the back. It was pretty inconvenient to get refills, but since very few people ever reserved rooms near the back, it was nice and quiet. Once or twice a week, I'd come here on my way home from school to log on to my other ESO account. Neidhart was essentially a celebrity, so this was my way to just relax and enjoy the game. While I did love being treated like a hero all the time, it sure did take its toll. That was why I'd made another avatar. Avatar, a character used to represent an internet user on websites, chat rooms, online games, and other online communities. This one was a female character named Elisalot. I hadn't accomplished anything big with her. I'd mainly just made her to help Neidhart look even better by comparison. I'd played for about 3 hours to blow off some steam. I then had some fun messing around with my guildmates while talking about hardcore doujins and other random shit. Guild. When used in online games, it refers to a particular group of players that centers around a single leader. These groups are akin to small communities where users can chat and adventure together. Some guilds are so tight-knit that they often organize online meets in order to see each other in real life. Dojin, short for doujinshi. the Japanese term for self-published works, with the most popular being media associated with otaku, such as manga or light novels. They are most often sold at various conventions or online. While doujins can feature pornographic content, many do not. By the time I'd left the cafe, it was already around 9 p.m. There were even more dokyuns around at this time of night. They'd line the streets like they owned the place, stuffing their faces with greasy-ass hamburgers as they let out the most disgusting laughter imaginable. Just looking at them makes me want to puke. What was especially bad? If you so much as looked at them wrong way, they'd immediately come and beat the shit out of you. Fucking savages. They weren't human. They were animals, not fit for civilized society. Just throw them in a slaughterhouse or something, seriously. Well, I say that, but there was no way I could hope to ever stand up to them myself, so there was no point in trying. Regardless, it was about time to get the hell out of Center Guy. Guy. A Japanese word, used here as a suffix meaning street. The word dori can also be used this way. Huh. Oh, wait, no. Mori is, forest. Okay. On my way back from At Cafe, I always dropped by Manga Darake, which was pretty close by, or Animate. Animate? Which was a bit further off. I decided to check out Animate today. You guys can correct me later if this is wrong. So, I headed toward the station's south exit. Down that path, there was an instant drop in the number of dokyuns. Man, Center Guy was complete and utter chaos. Just walking through it brought me nothing but pain and suffering. I'd never set foot here again if I could help it. I wish the whole place would just get blown to smithereens. Except At Cafe and Manga Darake, of course. Alright then, time to go browsing for some comics, doujins, or whatever else catches my eye. Oh yeah, that's right. The Bloodtoon Volume 5 DVD was coming out soon. Was it available for pre-order yet? If so, I definitely need to get one nailed down. Before I knew it, I found myself in an alleyway in Maruyamato, the same alley I always took back home from Animate. I blinked a couple of times to make sure that I wasn't just seeing things. I took a look inside my bag. Nothing inside but the usual. Some textbooks and a handheld game system. I hadn't bought anything from Animate today. Strange. Normally I'd never leave Animate and empty-handed. Well, whatever. I let out a sigh and continued walking. Shouldn't take me more than 15 minutes to reach my base from here. I was only a short walk from the station, yet the dazzling neon lights and thick crowds had all but vanished. There were the occasional passersby, usually older couples heading to love hotels or random businessmen heading home, but aside from that, the place was deserted. Hard to believe this was still Shibuya, home of the bustling, dokun-infected Center Guy. Somehow it was already nighttime. As if that weren't enough, it was especially cloudy tonight, making it even darker than usual since the moonlight couldn't shine through. Here we go. Oh, whoops. I'd walked down this dirty alley more times than I could count. Tinnitus effect. But for some reason, walking through it today, I couldn't help but feel as if I stepped into another world. Have we? The alley was the same as ever, but It felt like it was the first time I'd ever set foot in it. What's more, the stench of rotting garbage was lingering in the air. The moisture in the atmosphere was so thick that, if I hadn't known any better, I'd have assumed that it had just been raining. The air was like syrup on my skin.
いや、ちょっと待った。
Why did I say again? Has this happened before? Hadn't I felt this sense of jamais vu before? Deja vu, jamais vu. You guys can correct me on that one if I'm not saying it right. Deja vu is the feeling of having experienced something before, despite not having actually experienced it. It feels as if one is recalling a genuine past experience, as opposed to an imagined experience or a dream. However, the individual undergoing this phenomenon is unable to recall when or and where that experience occurred, which results in an intense feeling of strangeness. The cause of deja vu has yet to be determined. One theory is that it is a physiological phenomenon caused by an extremely rare temporary desynchronization of the recollection and storage functions of memory. The cause is theorized to be spasms in the brain's parohippocampal gyrus, which is in charge of spatial reasoning and the sensation of familiarity. There's also the opposite of deja vu, where one feels that they have not experienced something despite having experienced it in the past. This is known as jamais vu. Fuck. Was I getting my delusions mixed up with reality or something? That sounded like the kind of nonsense some expert psychiatrist would say on one of those TV talk shows. Well, whatever. The point was, right at that moment, I was feeling a strange sense of jamais vu. But on top of that, I could feel a prickling sensation on the nape of my neck. A sensation I knew very well. The feeling of being watched from the heavens. And I could say for sure that it was no delusion. It felt inescapable, as if no matter where I went, the gaze would follow. There was no doubt in my mind. Somebody was watching me. That was just how powerful the sensation was. I desperately wanted to look behind me, but I challenged myself not to. It was a game that I played every once in a while. A test. I called it the "it'll take more than that to make me turn around" game. The aim of the game, obviously, was to avoid turning around. I played it when I heard a weird sound or felt like I was being watched. Whenever I felt the gaze, I tended to imagine some kind of insanely terrifying ghost or monster lurking behind me. Not like I'd ever actually seen anything in the past 17 years, though, even on the occasions where I'd lost my patience and turned around. Still, I'd always been able to have at least a little bit of fun with it. I'd listen to the wind, raise an eyebrow suspiciously, and say phrases ripped straight out of a manga. That was the only reason why I did it, because it was fun. Definitely not because I was scared or anything.
貴様見ているな。その目誰の目？なんちゃって。
Okay, to be honest, I was really just trying to act calm, but before I knew it, I stopped dead in my tracks. I sensed a change in the atmosphere paralyzing my body in place. I then noticed my face was soaked with sweat and my knees were shaking. Unable to take it anymore, I turned around, which meant that I'd lost. Thankfully, there was no one behind me, not even a car passing by or something. So, why did I feel so uneasy? The ringing in my ears ceased. I hadn't even realized it, but I'd been hearing some ringing sound this whole time. But still, until now, I had been completely oblivious to it. And now that it was gone, I couldn't hear anything at all. For a place like Tokyo, the sort of sudden silence seemed completely unreal. It was the sort of perfect silence where you could hear a pin drop if you focused hard enough. So, I closed my eyes and listened closely, just to see what I could hear. That was my phone. But I still couldn't hear anything at all. That was pretty strange. No, that was definitely strange. There were all sorts of things I should have been hearing. Trains running by, car horns in the distance, some sort of small noise. So, why did I hear nothing? Was something wrong with my ears? I felt compelled to shout just so I could hear something. I felt like I might go crazy otherwise. But I couldn't do it. The silence was deafening, but it made me fear what would happen if I broke it. A train. Suddenly, a single sound resonated through the silent world. I turned my head to look for the source, but instead I found a slew of shining objects scattered across the asphalt. Are those the things that were sticking out of that dead guy from Shogun's photo?
十字架?
Yeah, crosses. When I saw them, my body suddenly unfroze, and naturally, perhaps too naturally, I started moving towards them. Driven by curiosity, I picked one up. It was made of metal with a long, pointy end like a needle. A stake? Or a nail, maybe. Whatever it was shaped like a cross, hence my initial confusion. It felt almost phantasmal, like it might float away at any moment. I tightened my grip on it. And the sound continued to reverberate faintly in the distance. A sound cold enough to send chills down my spine, repeating incessantly. Even so, I couldn't help but move toward the source. It was like I was in a trance. Was it just morbid curiosity, or was I hoping that the noise would save me? That it would grant me salvation from this silent world? You know, this reminds me of that one German folktale. What was it called again? Oh, right, The Pied Piper of Hamelin. A story in which the sound of one man's pipe lured over 100 children into following him. The clanging sound refused to stop, and the farther I walked, the louder it got. It was coming from further down the alley, past the corner on my left. I could already tell, if I turned that corner, I would be met with the source of that sound. And yet, I never thought of turning back. Such a thought didn't even cross my mind. It was like my body was moving on its own. And so, I turned the corner and my eyes were struck by a vibrant crimson shining through the darkness. Oh. Oh, gosh, that is... My first thought was, where have I seen this art piece before? And my second thought was, it doesn't look very realistic. I was so shocked that my brain wasn't processing things properly. Normally when I saw something this terrifying, I'd freeze, scream like a little girl, and piss my pants all at once. The work consisted of spikes arranged on a wall, like the quills of a hedgehog or pins in a pincushion. But when I looked closer, I realized the pincushion was leaking blood. So then, that meant the puddle of crimson below it was blood. The feeble glow of a streetlight just barely reached it, causing the pool to gleam in the darkness. Scattered around were a few pieces of what looked like meat. Maybe. I couldn't really tell. I tried to gulp, but my throat had gone completely dry. Not a single drop of saliva to be found. Jeez, Takumi, you're making me need a drink of water. That's better. And then I realized the thing that was nailed to the wall was a human corpse. A murder that was far too unnatural, far too brutal, far too immoderate. And the one who'd done it, the one who had nailed these stakes to the wall, was a single girl. As for how I knew that, it was because she was right there, standing in front of her art, holding a bunch of stakes in her blood-soaked hand. I could only see her back from here, so I obviously had no clue what she looked like. What I could tell, though, was what she was wearing. A SEIRA-TAN Academy uniform. The stench of rotting garbage was intensifying, and I was hit with wave after wave of nausea. I put a hand to my mouth to stop myself from vomiting, but I was nearly at my limit. And then it suddenly dawned on me. The cause of my deja vu. The answer to the question, where have I seen this before?
あの時の将軍のピンク写真
Without meaning to, I'd said that out loud, without realizing how dangerous, or even deadly that mistake could be. In response to my voice, her shoulder twitched slightly. And with that, she slowly turned to face me. In that moment, it was as if her gaze was piercing straight through me. Such desolate eyes. Oh gosh, you can see her moving a little. She had just killed someone. At first, she seemed shocked, but her expression quickly changed to a somber smile, and then
よかった
she softly whispered those words. Thank goodness? Thank goodness for what? And why was she smiling at me? I didn't understand. The questions kept piling up to the point where it sent a chill down my spine. Now panicking, I tried averting my eyes. The first thing that came to mind was, I don't want anything to do with this. I mean, for starters, I could hardly make eye contact with regular 3D girls, let alone psycho killers. The police would be here soon, and I was hungry. That's why I should go home. That's why I should just go home, yeah. I need to get out of here as fast as humanly possible. If I don't, I'll go insane. Oh. Suddenly, she called me by name, even though I'd never told her my name, even though I'd never met her before. As she looked at me, her lips twisted into a horrifically fearsome smile, almost like she was a demon. Screaming at the top of my lungs, I ran as fast as my legs could carry me. It hurt to breathe, but I didn't care. I just kept screaming and running as if my life depended on it. At one point along the way, I turned my head to look behind me, but she didn't seem to be chasing me. I was completely winded. My lungs struggled to shove air in and out, and my agonized panting echoed throughout my room. I plopped down in my computer chair. My body and clothes were completely drenched in sweat. What the fuck had just happened? Another one of my delusions? My nausea was becoming unbearable. Trying to alleviate it, I grabbed a cola from the fridge and chugged it as fast as I could. I wonder what these delusions he keeps talking about are. That delusion was way too realistic, even for my usual standards, and boy, was it gruesome. Too gruesome. I was still out of breath. Could a simple delusion really do this to me? No, it definitely couldn't. I felt an uncomfortable sensation in my right hand. I'd been clenching my fists so hard my fingers had nearly turned white. I hadn't even noticed until just now. I slowly opened my hand one finger at a time, all while my heart pounded like a drum. Lying in the palm of my hand was a single steak. Terrified by the sight of it, I instinctively turned and threw it against the wall. That was the steak from before. Well, I definitely did pick one up off the ground earlier, but how was that even possible? Hadn't it all just been a delusion? I don't know. It can't be possible. It can't be. At my wit's end, I started pacing around my room. I need to figure out whether that nightmare had been real or just another delusion. That was the plan, at least, until I slipped on a CD case and lost my balance. In a panic, I reached out for something to keep myself from falling flat on the floor. I barely managed to find something to latch onto, but unfortunately, that something was my shelf of waifus. A tragic loss. Before I had the chance to regret it, it was already too late. In the end, no matter how hard I tried, I wasn't able to stop myself from falling ass first onto the floor. And to make matters worse, several of my beautifully arranged figures came tumbling down on top of me. Ugh, God damn it, this was the worst. Everything about this was just the worst. I let out a groan as I rose to my feet. I had to make sure my figures were safe. It snapped clean in two. Why did it have to be one of the expensive ones? I paid a premium online for this.
ふざけんなよ
I tried putting the two halves of the plate back together, but I'd never be able to fix it perfectly, even if I used glue. Any value it once had was now gone.
マジで勘弁してくれよクソクソ
I turned to my chair and kicked it out of sheer rage. Tears began to well up in my eyes. Why did I have to go through all this? What had I ever done to deserve this? I fell to the floor and just sat there for a while, heartbroken, staring dejectedly at my now swordless Ignis-tan. Once the storm of anger and confusion had passed, I found my mind filling with visions of her face, along with that modern art I'd seen. I had actually been physically holding one of those stakes, which meant it couldn't have been a delusion. It had to all been real. I really wanted to deny it, but there was no way I could. By tomorrow, it was sure to be all over the media. I really didn't want anything to do with this nightmare. There was no way associating with that girl, no, that demon, could bring anything but catastrophe for me. Hell, we'd only just met for the first time, and there had already been a disaster. After all, I'd brought home a critical piece of evidence from that incident. One of the stakes that had been used in the murder. I wouldn't be surprised if that on its own was enough to make me a suspect. And if things weren't already bad enough, that demon had seen my face. There was no way out of this mess. At this rate, that demon was going to... Oh, forget about that. For now, I should focus on getting things sorted in my head, for my own sake. If I valued my own life, I really needed to figure things out. No doubt about it. Shogun equals mystery girl. Mystery girl equals murderer and demon.
あの写真は事件の予告メッセージみたいなものだったんだ
I mean, I would have had to hide that bonnet for an entire day. I know it was in an alleyway, but somebody would have found it. Otherwise, there'd be no way the image could have matched up so perfectly with the crime scene. First, she'd edited that image together, then she recreated it in real life, right down to the finest detail. That was how the crime had happened. No, in her eyes, I bet it was more of a work of art than a crime. So he is convinced that the image is fake. She seemed like that kind of psycho, dedicated to finishing any job with nothing but sheer perfection.
頭がおかしいよでもどうしてそれを僕にそもそもあの女はナイトハルトが僕だってどうやって知った僕の名前をどうやって知った
What was I supposed to do? That demon would definitely come to kill me soon. If she already knew my name, email, and all that stuff, then there was a very good chance she knew my home address too. I curled up into the fetal position on my chair. The image of that twisted murder was etched into my mind. How could I stay calm when I could end up that way too?
死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない死にたくない
死にたくない。
大丈夫。
Oh no. I'm gonna get demonetized. I'm just kidding, I'm not monetized to begin with. SEIRA-TAN laid sideways on my desk, facing towards me with a smile.
タッキー、あなたはこの部屋に引きこもってればいいんだよ。したらあの悪魔だって手出しできないっしょ。そのうちに警察がうまく捕まえてくれるって。それまでは誰も信じちゃダメ。誰の言葉にも耳を傾けちゃダメ。悪魔ってさ、人の心の隙間をついてくるのが好きなんだよね。油断すんのはノー。できるっしょ、タッキー。
でもセイラ、
逃げるが勝ちってよく言うし、三次元のことなんてきれいさっぱり忘れちゃえばいいさ。あなたには一切関係ないことだって思えば気が楽っしょ。関係ないこと考えたって無駄無駄さ。いいこと教えてあげる。引きこもりって最強なんよ。だって誰にも会わないっしょ。つまり誰にも攻撃されない。これぞ最強の自己防衛方法なわけさ。
Flawless logic there, SEIRA.
だからタッキーは引きこもりになるべきなんさ。簡単っしょ。
そうかもしれない。
Just what I'd expect from my waifu. I could always count on her to give me the best advice. Having regained my peace of mind, I reached out my hand for SEIRA-TAN, lightly grasping her by her slim waist. Even as our faces drew closer, her smile never wavered.
ありがとうセイラ、おかげで勇気が出てきた。そうだよ、三次元なんてクソくらいだ。
As a Disney princess
僕みたい
waist.
な妹のことなんて気にも留めてないさ。僕は安全だ。安心して毎日演奏したり好きなアニメを見てれば何の問題もないんだ。
でもさっき言ったみたく油断は禁物だぞ。
分かってるよ。
I couldn't trust anyone. I wouldn't listen to a single word they had to say. All I had to do was be careful of everything in the 3D world. As long as I did that, everything would be just fine.
セイラにそこまで心配してもらえて僕は幸せだな。さてと、それじゃ気分直しに演スロット。
ライアンクロス、ライアンクロス、約束は今。ライアンクロス、ライアンクロス、果たされるから。
Seems this has turned into KSMR.
ライアンクロス、ライアンクロス、解き放たれた。ライアンクロス、ライアンクロス、週末。
Late into the night, the sound of a beautiful voice could be heard throughout Miyashita Park. It was coming from a pedestrian bridge that crossed over Meiji Dori. A steady flow of cars passed underneath. But in spite of this, the girl known as FES showed no signs of being affected by the noise. She simply kept on singing, leaning back against the handrail of the bridge.
月夜の光が示された従者よ。
On any normal day, if she were to sing on the street in public like this, she would surely attract hundreds of onlookers. But right now, nobody was listening to her sing. For FES was deliberately concealing her presence, blending into the stillness of the night.
この場所へつながる幻の道
This way, she could loiter quietly until the moon left the sky behind. By doing so, by becoming one with the darkness, she felt as if she could be free from her, as if she could free herself from the corrupt atmosphere of Shibuya, if only for a moment. That was what FES felt to be true.
叫びはいつしか沈黙に変わって
Well, that's a disturbing line. Suddenly, FES looked up to the night sky. The clouds covering it were starting to clear up, little by little, leaving space for the moonlight to shine through in their wake. But sadly, any and all starlight was completely drowned out by the dazzling neon of Shibuya.
落ちてゆく安息風に手と手をつないで
FES halted her song, then slowly reached her hand out toward the sky.
その目誰の目
Whose are they? Okay, so... yeah. Now's a good place to stop for now, since, gunning for about hour play sessions. Yeah. I am really interested to see what's going on here. This... What sort of, centuries-old philosophy is gonna be behind a guy getting stabbed with thousands of crosses to a wall in an alleyway? Let's find out next time.